All right, let's get into what we want to talk about today. We had a question, and I can't remember who. I would like to give the person credit, and it was one of our Instagram posts, and somebody asked, what is your one all-time best games moment? And we all sort of went, ooh, that's a good question, because I don't know if I could pick just one. So we said, okay, it's 4th of July. Let's pick our, kind of fireworks moments. And we said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to divide it up in eras. We're going to go Ranch, Carson, Madison. All right. We're going to pick our top moment. And I'm going to use that term loosely because it might be top like event. It might be top, finish and whatever. We'll pick our top one of those from each era, and then we'll throw a couple wild cards out there.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. So we'll start.
I have some
clarification.
Thought, okay. Some clarification.
Point of order.
Yes, because I think for me, in many ways, saying like what my favorite moment from the games or like fireworks, there's a couple different ways I can tackle it. Because
I agree. There's some different,
Being of a certain ilk and growing up in a farm town where many a trucker passed through, one of my favorite days of the year is when you get word that the shipment of fireworks from Mexico came in with the latest with the latest batch of romaine lettuce.
Mm-hmm.
And so fireworks can mean many things in my history. Sometimes they make you go ooh, and sometimes they make you go ouch.
Yes.
So I that's kind of the approach that I took to my fireworks moments.
That's totally fine.
Okay.
I like that. I think that, and by the way, special shout out to all the people who are spending their last 2 hours with all 10 of their digits.
Oh no!
Oh,
There's probably a pretty high stat on that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I saw a meme that
watch
said,
this famous last words.
It said, "Hey kids, let's be responsible. Yeah. Step away from the fireworks and let the adults that have been drinking all day do it."
All right. Well, let's get this thing ignited, if you will.
Okay.
We'll go to the ranch era. So we had 3 years there. We had 2007, 2008, 2009. James Fitzgerald and Jolie Gentry, 2007, correct?
Yep.
2008 was Katie Motter and Jason Kalipa, champions. And then 2009, Miko Salo and Tanya Wagner. Okay. Some very iconic events and moments from there. I think about, the two that we repeated in 2016, the ranch trail run and the deadlift ladder. I think you could certainly make a case for both of those. Some great images, I think, in video that came out of that. But for me, when I thought about it, I got to go with Jason Kalipa's finish. And I'll tell you for a couple reasons. First of all, it was a great epic comeback in that every second counts format. And the only footage of that exists is from his father's camcorder. And I think missing that moment had a pretty big impact on the developing CrossFit media team that was in its sort of nascent stage at that.
Yes.
That really, the fact that they missed that, I think, pushed things in a certain direction. So my big moment from the ranch is going to be Jason Kalipa's finish in 2008 to clinch the title of Fittest on Earth.
Yes, because if you go back, and so that year there was a documentary called Every Second Counts because of the format. Sevon, Carrie Peterson, and I don't know if anyone else shot it, but produced that, and they covered a bunch.
Peterson, right?
Carrie Peterson, yeah. They followed a couple athletes throughout the year, did some great storytelling on like John Wellborn. One of my favorite quotes from John was John Wellborn, at the ranch before the finale, when they're talking about lifting, and he mentions Josh Everett, and like Wellborn gives him this like, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, like, "Have you seen Josh Everett lift?" And that was like a great intro into like, Josh as a person at the time. And they even did this like backtrack where Castro didn't think that Jason was supposed to be at the finale briefing for the final, the final heat. He thought he was like lost. He's like, "Are you supposed to be here?" And it's like, "No, actually this guy's like in 6th or 7th. And then he comes from behind and absolutely smashes that workout. And thankfully enough, because I think everyone would have put their money on Josh Everett at that point, because Spieler had a huge lead, but you knew that he was going to struggle. Everett was just a little bit behind him, and that was the guy you're going to follow, right? And, you know, it's what happens. Sometimes you get caught. The race isn't always the race that's in front of you. And Khalipa's dad, you know, proud dad with the camcorder over here, gets it in its entirety. And, you know, a new star is born, a new juggernaut is born in the space because of that moment. And, you know, everything from, I think in the movie, he's wearing like so I had the exact same shirt because we just graduated from college that year at Santa Clara, and he's wearing like a SCU Broncos like Under Armour shirt that you get at the bookstore. Like,
oh my gosh.
like you couldn't imagine wearing that at the games now, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like I knew that was going to get picked, so I didn't pick it as a moment for me. It's on my list, you know, but I knew that like you couldn't get away without.
Well, sorry, my son is here. Take your kid to work day. Lauren, what was yours? What is your top moment from the ranch?
So speaking of Jason Khalipa, this event kind of focuses on him, but in a surprising way. I'm going with the 2009 sandbag sprint, where all eyes were on
that's a
Jason
good
Khalipa
one.
trekking up the hill. And then all of a sudden, Chris Spieler just sneaks on in between him and was almost double time of Khalipa's speed. And I think it was just something that nobody really expected. You're always watching the reigning champion on your screen thinking that, you know, they're going to do really well. There was a strong start of that event. And you would assume that somebody like Jason Khalipa knows how to, you know, manage and maybe edge somebody out as they start sneaking past him. But it was almost like he didn't even know that Chris Spieler was there when he just snuck on past him.
Oh,
that event too, pretty iconic from just the carnage that it was left in its wake. And I think a lot of people say that was one of the toughest ones they've ever done.
I wrote down, so this is also on my list as an honorable mention. I just wrote for the moment, everyone's legs on the sandbag hill run. Because if you go back and watch all the heats, Pat Sherwood competed that year.
Yeah, he did.
And there's like a scene where they cut to the finish line, and Pat just like rears back, just goes like a dying baby giraffe.
Yeah.
And that was also like our introduction to Annie T. She won that event, and everyone's like, who's this lady?
Yeah.
But that was a great Spieler moment. That was like one of the moments that like built up his legend.
What do you got?
So man, there's so many. I thought you might pick a couple other ones, but I'm gonna zag here because I feel like this characterized the attitude and grittiness of what the ranch.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with that.
And it wouldn't be fireworks unless someone blew up a finger. And it is 2009. Nicole Gordon blowing her thumb up like just smashing it like a grape on the sledge row, and then still coming back and finishing and doing the couplet afterwards. The sledge row got announced. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're gonna have us hit these stakes in the ground with a sledgehammer? Someone's gonna get hurt." But whatever. She ends up just popping her thumb and blows her thumb up, and everyone's like, "Uh-oh, that's it." But you know what? She's like, tape me up. Thumb's just in shambles. Goes out and does the couplet event afterwards. To me, that was like, I remember hearing about that. So I had started CrossFit, but I didn't go to the games that year. And I remember hearing about that moment, and everyone just talking like, "Did you hear Nicole like blew up her thumb on the?" And it was just one of those gritty moments. You won't see it on the leaderboard ever. Few people probably remember that weren't there at the time, but it was one of those things that you saw later on video, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's what the years at the ranch were all about."
All right, we got Khalipa's finish in 2008. We got the Chris Spieler on the hill run, and we have the thumb.
Nicole Gordon blowing her thumb up on the sledge row.
All right, that takes us now to Carson, where we started there in 2010.
Yeah.
And that lasted to 2016. That was sort of I think the beginning of the modern era. First time that we were ever on live television, as far as, you know, ESPN goes. Was CBS involved at that point? Did they get involved in 2016? No, they were later.
Yeah.
So it was all ESPN. So many, and I think for me, the Carson will always be about the tennis stadium. and the moments that happened there.
Mm-hmm.
There were some cool offsite events. You know, Pendleton, I think, is still one of the most infamous, if not the most infamous, offsite event that we've ever had. But this one was hard for me because I again I came down to events for me. And the one that stands out, the one that I think is one of the best events, best finishes, most exciting moments, just the total package. I got to go with push-pull. I got to go with push-pull in 2014. It was a great race. It provided us with the Josh Bridges signature reaction after he won. Rich Froning took the overall lead after that event. So, sorry about my son in the background there.
Can you hear him? I don't think he's probably barely just
sounds like him the quiet.
It sounds like background music.
Yeah. But that to me is like the top event from 2014. And the top moment from Carson, because I think it just summed up everything that was great about that setting and all the fantastic moments that we had inside the tennis stadium. There certainly were a lot, but that was the top one for me.
I would tend to agree. Like if just the pure adrenaline, goosebumps, like heat of competition type moment like that, I would 1000% agree. And if anyone's listening at home that hasn't seen it, Marston Heber, the early seeds of the documentaries that would eventually get made started in 2014. There is a 2014 like best of the best highlights video. I want to say
that's a great video.
That's like let's see. I want to say it's 30-ish minutes.
Is it that long?
It might be,
but it's really good.
It has some, yes. Oh, no way. It's only 9 minutes.
Yeah, it's not, but how many? 2.6 million views. I remember when it came out. It was fantastic.
It feels like it's jam-packed. Yeah. It has, oh my gosh. It has everything from the clean speed ladder, but it has this the cover video of it is Bridges celebrating from push-pull.
That is one of those images that is just, again, just defines what the tennis stadium and the energy in there was all about.
Because and they cut to it beautifully, right? They show the finish to let me see. I want to see. Oh yeah. You can see the most replayed part is the finish to it. There's a slow-mo of Bridges just uncorking, and even so much so that Rich is just like, nice job, buddy. But as epic, that's one of the best moments, period, for sure.
That's mine. All right, we'll go back to we'll go same order. Lauren, you're up next.
Man, Sean, I think that we're on the same wavelength because mine is also a Josh Bridges moment. I mean, anytime he does the roar and the hands in the air is a magical moment. But I'm gonna go to the 2016 games when he wins Murph.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Tommy. Come on.
That was a great one.
That was just teed up so perfectly, and especially like having his background as a former Navy SEAL, for him to win it at the CrossFit Games, I think just makes that event even more magical. And then as he crosses the finish line and you hear that little belt out of him, and was more than a minute faster than our soon-to-be 5-time champion, Matt Frazier. It just was a really cool moment, I think, for him and the fans, and just to go back and watch, even though it's a very long event, about 45 minutes, it's something that I think was consistently entertaining to watch.
If you Google Josh Bridges wins Murph, there are CrossFit Games TikToks. There's a 1 minute and 46 second highlight from Rogue of Bridges winning Murph. It was, so full disclosure, I had a bunch on my list. I had 16 moments from the Carson era that were up for grabs here. I think I had 10. I think I had 10 from the ranch days, maybe 8. But the reason being, I had a feeling we might duplicate, and that this was my moment originally. Oh God! I just paused on Castro's cornrows because he had him during that event.
That was a tragedy.
But I had that one
how he
as
ended
my
up in
moment.
cornrows?
I don't know. Lost him.
I know he officiated someone's wedding in cornrows. So I will switch my moment from that because I had a couple banned because I had a feeling someone might pick Josh Bridges and Murph.
You can pick the same one.
I know, but yeah. I wanna throw some out. Oh man, I got so many here. We can go through all the ones afterwards, but I have to pick between two of Sean's best calls of all time.
Oh God! All right.
Ooh.
And so what I'm gonna pick is Sean's call on Double Grace for Rich Froning in 2014. That was a fireworks moment for me because for the first time ever, it felt like Rich's title was potentially in doubt. Mm-hmm. And we're like, he's getting pushed by this rookie.
He won all 3 events that day,
on
right?
Sunday. Yeah,
it was midline March.
Yep, thick and quick,
Double Grace,
and he comes out, wins the first 2. We end up having a double event for the finale, but the thing is, like, Fraser's finishing right on his heels every time, so he's not giving up a tremendous amount of ground. And there's an alternate angle. I think your wife maybe took it from the booth from behind you, so you can see Sean setting up for the call as it's happening in real time. And I'm going to give him some guff because I love him to death. But Chase tried to replicate it in some way with the team competition a couple years later, and it didn't quite land at the same cadence, which just is a testament to how good this call and moment was. Because as we watched Rich finish those final few reps, and that was his swan song as an individual, he was going to win 4 straight. No one was going to touch him. At the time, the title of fittest in history was appropriate, and Sean just timed all of those years leading up right to that final rep, and just the call just knocked it out of the park. It was like, when I heard it back, it like goosebumps. The call was just perfect. It was like this beautiful symphony of everything at the right cross section. And little did we know we were just getting started. Just getting started. That Double Grace moment, that it was Froning Swan Song. The call from Sean was just perfect.
Well, thank you. I got very lucky. Had that been a different event, that call may not have worked out the way it did. And I have to give Tony Budding credit for giving me the idea to do that, because that whole thing got put in my head during the post shows for 2013. And I remember he said, yeah, you could call Rich Froning the fittest man in history. And Greg and I would back you up on that. Like, we would, I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll use that one day. And it was just, but thank you for that.
It nailed it.
All right. Now we go to Madison. Madison started in 2017 and we are still there. I think, I don't know if Madison has, I love the Coliseum. Coliseum's a great setting. I don't know, like, if you put that up against the tennis stadium, I'd probably take the tennis stadium, just being, outdoors under the lights. We had, some events that had, fireworks outside. And I think we've had fireworks in Madison too, haven't we?
I think.
Or could I be wrong? I don't know. Anyway,
I
know we've had plenty on the floor. Have they shot any off? I could have sworn that maybe they did. I don't know. They've done it at Rogue. I know that. I got to go with, there's 2 obvious ones, and I'm going to pick one of them. And to me, it's the finish between Tia and Cara in 2017.
Yep. That's what I had.
There's another one that is, I think, very worthy of it as well. But because this started the Tia era, and not only was it the finish of the actual event where, Tia looked like she's going to lunge to the finish line, then drops the kettlebell, and here comes Cara, and it was just 2 points separated the two. You had that excitement. Then you had the excitement of the suspense of the announcement with Dave Castro, and then you had Tia's reaction. And it is so funny to see the difference between that reaction and what it is now. She's like, "Yep, won. Thank you very much," to opposed to the emotion that she showed that first time. And I'll never forget calling that, because having been up there and you have the headphones on and you don't necessarily, you get an idea of the crowd, but you don't hear them at full blast. But there was sound, had feeling at that point. Everybody was on their feet, and it was it was insane. And that's to me got to be the one.
It might be the best push to the finish on the final day that I've seen between two athletes that I mean, they're from the same region, that they had a ton of history competing against each other. And it was like, it's the storylines around it of like Cara finally realizing this like potential that we saw way back in 2014 when it looked like she was going to win. And then obviously like it all came crashing down. She had the neck issue. She had the like the jaw issue that like, and she ultimately had to withdraw, even though if she finished and just went out and stood on the starting mat, she could have gotten zeros the rest of the way and still finished 6th or 7th that year. That's how good she was doing at the time. To 2015, crushing it again and then getting heat stroke and still managing to stay in the top 10 after that and like somehow come back. That 2017 just felt like, okay, this is where it's all aligning for Cara again. And this is supposed to be Tia's year. And is this going to be like Tia have to wait another year?
Yeah.
And it was just this amazing push to the finish. It was set up the event before with the early rep count on the 2-2-2-3 interval where
that's right. Cara came across first. Yeah.
She got pointed to the mat a couple reps early. So there was a little bit of like, ooh, what's going to happen? That was, you just couldn't script that, right? Like it was like, oh, okay, well now it's over because Tia's going to finish. And that left arm breaks and you're like, and it's like, well, all right, well, Cara needs to, it was like everything you say that needs to happen, happen in that sequential order. I remember we're at the day at the game set, watching it happen in the beer garden. And I didn't realize the face I was making. And I looked over at Dan Bailey and he's making the face back at me. And we're like, it's like it was like watching with the face of the crowd the first time the Undertaker lost at WrestleMania. And you could hear a pin drop in the beer garden, which is amazing given how many liquored up Wisconsinites were in that beer hall. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it.
All right, Lauren, what do you got? Same one?
Well, that was on my list. Has there ever, though, been an event where nobody really knew who the winner was until it was announced of the games?
So it was close. I
think it was, I would go maybe 2015 and 2016, those years with Katrin and where the podium was the exact same. That was somewhat in doubt.
So the in 2015 it was in doubt, obviously. Same 2015, 2016 for the women, it was in doubt. You weren't really sure. Interestingly enough, and this doesn't get talked about enough, but the overall lead actually changed hands between Pedal to the Metal 1 and 2 for the men in 2015. Matt Fraser was actually ahead by 4 points, I think, going into Pedal to the Metal 2.
I think you're right. You're right.
But since it was a back-to-back, we didn't have time to like sit with it, calculate it, talk about the points race. And then what took the wind out of the sails for that was that he hit failure on the handstand push-ups, and then Ben Smith ran away with it. So, but it did change hands in that final one for both of the Katrin Tia. We did have to wait a little bit, especially that second year. We weren't sure because Katrin wasn't able to finish and she got capped, and it was like how many people can Tia beat to the finish line to maybe win for sure. So,
So you're up.
Okay, we are going to go back to 2018. We're going to go into North Park. It was a very warm day from my memory. And none of the athletes knew the expectation. They didn't know the rep scheme for the workout chaos.
I think that's I
would love for them to do another workout like that, because I mean, you had no idea who to bet your money on to win the event, regardless of the movements and what athletes' strengths were, because they didn't know how many reps were required. So how do you step on the engine or throttle back? Nobody knew. It was so much fun. I truthfully don't know how any athlete goes out there and does pistols cold, because I would tear an ACL and end up in a wheelchair out of there. But it just was so incredible to watch. Like, to me, that is true athleticism, to just go out there, have no idea what you're doing, and being able to do it on the spot.
Mm-hmm. I think if you were going to sum up to someone who knew nothing about CrossFit, like, what is it that you guys do? You could probably show them that event and be like, this is what it's all about: unknown and unknowable, and being able to adapt to a situation and overcome a physical challenge. And that event was really, really cool to watch.
And the name Chaos seemed apropos. Yeah, we excel at chaos.
All right,
I'm with you, Lauren. My patella tendon would have ended up in the third row. It would have been a nice
take home a knee day today here in the North Park.
First one lucky fan will walk away with a new tendon. That's
like
great.
Like a Gallagher show, but with Tommy's ACL.
You're in the splash zone.
All right, what do you got?
So I was curious. I have another 2018 one up there too, but it's not going to be my top one. This one is going to be the most like clear cut one that I could pick. It's 2019. It's Matt's final lift in the Max Clean Showdown. And the first time we had like the spotlight style lift. All the wackiness of 2019 as a year of cuts. You know, bring a friend to the games to compete day. Like
be the fifth caller and compete.
You know, games tickets handed out like, you know, Oprah prizes. And there was that moment where you're like, is Matt really not going to win this? Because it would have been the time, and all credit to Noah for having an amazing run. It would have been the one time that people could look at just at what had happened and everything that was in front of you and feel like it didn't line up with the reality, right? Like and I even went back and kind of redid the calculations if we could somehow formulate what the points would have been up until that point using a more traditional scoring system instead of changing it every single event. And Matt actually would have taken the lead from that clean lift at the end, but it did feel like everything was on the line in that lift there for Matt.
Yeah,
it was like he's not in the lead right now. He's not where he wants to be. Feels like there's a bunch of tomfoolery going on, but you know what? He comes from a lifting background. This is what he does. This is what he excels in, and this is his opportunity to get back to what he does best, and that's win. And I don't think there was a person in you could have put 400 pounds on that clean, and I think he would have lifted it. I think he would have willed that thing up.
I agreed.
And it was that lift alone made the whole season work somehow. Like it did. It was just and I don't think there was a person that didn't believe that Matt was going to win after that lift.
Yeah. Okay. Those are good ones. Now we have two wild cards or two honorable mention. We'll call these they're not necessarily the skyrockets. There might be that cool fountain you buy at the the roadside shop,
or some of these are, you held onto the Roman candle a little too long.
All right.
And you could peel yourself off the concrete and you're going to fire another one. Let's go.
Well, I'll give you my two right off the bat. I mean, I think the Capitol has got to be one of them. Like that's the other one that I think iconic images, iconic event, and one that if you take someone who knows nothing about CrossFit and you show them that, they have a pretty good idea about what it is that we do. And it highlighted the community aspect of getting behind the person that finishes last.
Mm-hmm.
That was almost my top one. The only reason it wasn't is because it just the moment itself did not have the impact on the overall race that obviously the TEF versus Cara one did. My other one, and this is just one that stands out to me again, this is 2013 in Carson. And this is one of the first events that I thought where Dave really pushed the envelope and really got the athletes into a zone where it's like, you may not have done this before and you're going to try to figure this out. And that was legless. Mm-hmm. And it was because of the reveal of the rope. And I got credit to Bill Grundler because he called it. He goes, it's going to be a legless rope climb. It's not going to come all the way down to the floor. And he was right. They released the ropes and they hung like 3 or 4, like a couple feet off the ground. And to see, Alessandro Pacelli figure that out, to see, the different techniques that were used and that the athletes were able to overcome that, plus the finish we had with the men.
Yep.
Plus
Plastic
the
bridges.
Start that we had to that final, if you remember the final heat, we had, is it Lori Gravatt? Is that Lauren Gravatt? Was that her name?
it's
one of the
no,
Gravats.
it's oh my God, Jordan Gravat's daughter. How can I?
I'm so sorry I can't remember her name, but she sang the national anthem.
Oh my God, it's
they
killing
had
me.
fireworks and then go. It was a pretty cool start to it. And I will always remember that. I think you could also maybe like Killer Cage was in there as well. But to me, legless and push pull were the two top events in the tennis stadium.
Why can't I?
My apologies to.
Oh my, it's Jordan and Paula's daughter.
Right.
Why can't I remember it?
Sorry. Lauren, what are your wild cards while Tommy efforts that information?
Okay, so the first one we're going to go to, I mean, everything about the sandbag ladder I think was really interesting because I was a non-believer. When they announced this, I'll be honest, I was like, oh, that's so stupid. Like, this is going to be boring. I'm not excited. Like,
Gabby, that's it. Gabby Rott. Thank you.
Sorry, I totally cut you off. I did not mean to do that. It literally just popped in. Yep. No.
And I was so proven wrong by that event. But the moment within that event that was so major for me was that Jacqueline Dahlstrom could go toe-to-toe with Danny Spiegel and take second overall in that event. I don't know about you guys, but she was not an athlete that I was watching or expected to be able to lift, 240 pounds, I think was the last sandbag, that she lifted. I mean, beating everybody else below her by 10 pounds, where a significant amount of women got out in the 230-pound sandbag. So to me, that was just really cool to watch, especially a smaller athlete be able to figure out the technique and scoot it on up and then stabilize it for a second place finish. So that's going to be one of my other moments that I just will never forget. And then the last one for me, or the last one for this episode, is in 2020 at the games, watching Carrie Pierce dominate Atlanta, beating all the men, all the women. And it just was a really cool moment because at least when I'm thinking of those other athletes, it's not that I wasn't watching Carrie. I guess I didn't expect it. I mean, you had Tia on the floor. You also had Haley Adams, who's a very enduring athlete, on the floor. But she ended up completely tearing her hands. Do you guys remember that? All the blood out there?
Yeah, her hands
it was brutal.
Shredded.
Oh my gosh. But Carrie Pierce was a top performance in memory and history for me.
Yeah, those are good. I totally. It's funny, you sort of forget about 2020 just because it was what it was.
Yeah.
You only had 10 people.
What was your first one?
My first one was the Capitol and Legolas.
Capitol, yeah.
But yeah, that Atlanta event was brutal. And that's when I remember getting so much respect for. I mean, I respected Haley Adams anyway. Obviously, one of the top 5 women in the world. But I really realized, oh man, this kid has mental toughness that, wow.
So much grit.
Like, I don't know how many people would have been like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just going to get up here and just, do some serious damage to my hands to get through this, get through this event. All right. What do you got?
So I'm picking 2 that had I would say, a profound kind of impact on me.
Okay.
The first one, 2014, there was the clean speed ladder, but it had nothing to do with the overall leaderboard and everything to do with 2 moments that happened in the preliminary rounds early on.
Okay. I think
the very first, and this might have been the 2 truly loudest pops I've ever heard of from the StubHub Center, from the tennis stadium. The first round goes through, everybody's going through, and the last person on the floor at the last barbell to get through is Chris Spieler. It's his last year making a run as an individual in 2014. He had missed the year before, and if you know anything about Chris, his kind of like legacy was always being like the smaller, undersized guy with a ton of heart that pulls things out that like most other people just don't have the will to do. And I think he missed the first lift, and then the announcers honed in on Chris being out there on the floor, last barbell, to try and finish under the time cap for that run through. And you knew he wasn't going to make it on in the preliminary rounds. And the entire tennis stadium stood up on their feet and just started roaring for Chris Spieler. and he pulls it, catches it, could have easily let it go, stands it up, and gets to the finish mat. And I thought the top had just blown off the place.
That was really cool.
And then it was tied, and I just watched watching the most recent Star Wars trilogy with my wife. There was a diode in the Force there between two athletes, him and Cody Anderson. Yes. And there was a lot of talk about Cody Anderson being kind of like this new age spieler, right? This undersized guy that can do amazing things that, outlast what you just see on the leaderboard. And the next round through, there was the 325 barbell, and Cody Anderson lined up that 325 barbell. And when he caught it, the minute the bar hit his shoulders in the rack, and you're like, oh, he can stand this up. Same thing. The entire place popped off. Credit to Brandon Domain, who was calling that at the time. He kind of called it like a passing of the torch type moment for like the one undersized underdog guy to another. And I remember behind the scenes, he got some guff for that because people were unwilling to like let go of that spieler, maybe moving into a different direction in his career. But I thought it was appropriate, and I thought it was a really well done parallel. And that was the loudest I'd ever heard the StubHub Center get.
I gotta give a shout out to Mike Roth, our director, because he had the angle from behind that showed Cody standing that up with the crowd. I mean, it was usually you don't want to, you want to see from the front, but that was the right choice, and it's a great shot.
It was, and it was like everything that like CrossFit as a sport is, right? We talk about like cheering for the last guy as hard as the first, and everyone just, I don't want to say an intelligence, but like there's a very profound understanding of what's going on the floor because of the shared experience that we have in the gym and knowing what it's like to step up to a bar where you just don't know if it's going to go up, and you're going to give it everything, and you just pray that you have that Disney moment. And that was it. And that was unreal. So that was my first one.
Okay.
I know I'm giving long-winded, but the other one, this one's kind of just, I'm going to go with this one. I call it Josh Everett committing assault on the final deadlift bar.
I had that one. I had this one as well.
2009, the deadlift ladder. Everyone thought it was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is like the pageantry of the CrossFit Games at the ranch. Because they had like a jumbotron there, and there was like all these bars laid out in. It was like the beginning of the ladder, a true ladder with all the bars being a thing in the sport. It just wasn't a thing. And then all of a sudden it was. And then the last bar was 505. And everyone's like, you're going to lift all of those bars and finish that with that last one. And Josh, if you go back and watch the highlights from that, Josh Everett, is just pumping himself up. And it just kind of went by in a flash. But in the highlights and watching it afterwards as like a young CrossFitter starting out, seeing him get fired up, rip that 505 barbell like it owed him money, and just slamming it down on the ground. And the best part is that he just turned around and marched straight back to the athlete area. And they couldn't even get like a soundbite.
So good.
It was like, oh my God. You could have bottled up whatever was coursing through Josh Everett's vein and put it in a tranquilizer dart to take down a male African white rhino. It was awesome.
Lauren, I know the answer to this question, so I'm going to ask Tommy. You've seen the movie Warrior, right?
Yes.
Yep. So you know when Tom Hardy just goes into the cage, like one punches that guy and then just walks out. Yep. That's what that reminded me of. Like he just throws it open, just walks back. I was like, yes. Yeah. I had Josh Everett. That was my other choice. Other than Khalipa at the ranch.
Every time I got ready, I knew it was a max deadlift day at the gym. I would go watch that video just to get me fired up. First time honestly, first time I ever lifted 500 pounds on a deadlift, when I was a goal that I'd been going for. I watched that before to get me pumped up.
Nice.
But
well, yeah, there's so many moments, and if you're watching this on YouTube, man, throw yours in the comments. We'd love to know what you guys think. Because like Atlanta, I didn't even think of that, and that's a great one, Lauren. And I'm sure there are going to be some other ones. I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about that. And
I love the trip down memory lane.
Yeah, can I do a couple quick rundowns?
Right, just honorable mention. All right,
Annie 200-pound snatch in 2021.
Yes,
that was
absolutely.
Like a comeback moment. Pat and Matt frog splashing from the top rope with a cargo net. We almost lost both of the top two finishers at the games in one fell swoop. Matt Fraser's suicide sprint 2016. Yes. That was a close miss for me. I almost. Sam Briggs passing Fikowski on the ranch run. Katrin and Tia back to back, 3 50-point events.
Mm-hmm.
That back and forth was amazing. Easy knocking himself out in the snatch speed ladder and then standing back up and finishing it.
Didn't he kip back up? Who kipped back up? Was it?
It might
Was
have been
that
him.
Yona?
It might have been Yona. I think it was Yona. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was the first time I thought someone died on the competition floor when he hit his head with the barbell, a 275 snatch barbell, and then stood back up and hit it and like did a little pump. That was great. Yeah. Pacelli and legless for the kip alone, obviously. Bridges destroys Naughty Nancy. One of my favorite photos ever. Will Duncan got the photo of him alone in the soccer stadium running, and Naughty Nancy running to the finish line.
Yeah.
And Will had embedded himself in the
that
the
is
fans.
a great shot.
Great shot. You could see no one's even close. Kalipa smashes the bird run, pulls the sled alone in the soccer stadium. That was an iconic image. Numi goes 1-2 in Pendleton. Starts talking to ghosts on the run with Chad McKay, gets an ambulance ride, comes back from the hospital, beats 12 people on the obstacle course just minutes later, and finishes the weekend 24th, I think. Akinwale going unbroken in the Killer Cage monkey bars.
Cool.
Matt Chan's wheelbarrow exploding. That one's on Pat Sherwood. Rich dive bombing from the rope Leroy Jenkins style in 2010. Kalipa blowing up on Amanda and almost killing the jib operator, and then Spieler winning it. And then back at the ranch era, Kalipa nearly dying on the opening run in 2009 and basically crawling to the finish line. NAT's first muscle up. And then here are 2 sneaky ones. Couplet carnage, I wrote it down. 28 total athletes DNF'd and knocked out of the competition from the 2009 couplet. 106 athletes took part. That means more than a quarter, 26+% of the field was shown the door from a simple little couplet of 30 wall balls, 30 squat snatches at 75 pounds and 45 pounds. The women were just using the empty barbell for the men.
Wow.
I think they actually had to use the women's barbell with 5s on it.
That's crazy.
Completely wiped out people in the top 10 to Kyle Kasper in the top 10 to being out of the competition. And then the last one, because it's a different type of fireworks, Katie Motter winning the games after Bill saying he'd marry her if she won. And that's how Rogue was formed, with a different kind of fireworks, baby.
Oh,
I think it was on the documentary where basically Bill joked, like, I told her we'd get married if she won. And she goes out and wins.
Great job, Katie. Yeah, you give, knowing I know about Katie, you give her a challenge and you think you are going to lose. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Well, that was a lot of fun. So many great memories and so many great moments. And again, let us know in the comments what you guys think yours are. I know, Lauren, you got to get going. So we will end this here, and we will get back to our regular scheduled shenanigans later in the week. We got some good interviews coming up. Justin Medeiros is on the schedule. We got Don Fall, CEO of CrossFit, on the schedule. Emma Lawson, we have that interview banked for you. Working on Sydney Wells, and we got some other good stuff in the works as well. Thanks again to our sponsor, Airwave. Be sure you check them out, airwave.com, AIRWAAV.com. Use our code TEF15 to save 15%. Have a safe and happy 4th of July, everybody. Maybe you listen to this while you're having a few wobbly pops and lighting off some illegal fireworks. So, America.
Keep all your fingers.
Always remember, more fuse than you think.
Exactly. All right, everybody. For Lauren Khalil and Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodland. Take care of each other. Be better. We will talk to you next time, and happy birthday, America.